So often we find ourselves in relationships with people who are codependents, people who have been raised and conditioned in environments that they didn't have power. We need to be fully conscious as to what this experience, this relationship, this output is costing us. And we need to examine whether or not that's in our best interest, whether or not that is triggering a trauma wound within us and causing us further emotional and psychological and sometimes financial despair. Sometimes in life, we find ourselves so frustrated, filled with anxiety, and in relationships that can bring trauma out of us. And we don't often know why that's happening. We don't know how to cope with it. We don't know how to escape it. And sometimes because we're financially dependent upon these relationships, or we have financial codependence together within this relationship, it's very difficult to find your way out of the scenario. You've put a lot of time in, a lot of developmental help into. You don't necessarily want to evacuate the relationship. You have a framework that you are used to living with. But frustrations can arise within these relationships that can bring you a lot of chaos and trauma and make you feel depleted in your vitality. I wanted to talk about how sometimes people can take too much from you. In order to live a healthy and balanced life, we need to be aware of how much people are taking from us. We need to be able to vet whether what they're taking from us is something that we can offer and we can give without it causing a detriment to us. So often we find ourselves in relationships with people who are codependents, people who have been raised and conditioned in environments that they didn't have power. We need to be fully conscious as to what this experience, this relationship, this output is costing us. And we need to examine whether or not that's in our best interest, whether or not that is triggering a trauma wound within us and causing us further emotional and psychological and sometimes financial despair. When someone takes too much from us, it can cause us not to have the time to look at ourselves and develop our own lives and our own growth and our own journey. In relationships, it's important that each person comes as a whole being, someone who's integrated with their heart, mind, body, and soul, with their awareness of their truth, their trauma, their weaknesses, their strengths, so that what they're offering you is something that is truly a gift, something that enhances your life, something that can help you become a better person. When each person is sovereign in their own ability to develop themselves and take control of that developmental growth process, when they can really analyze their life and work on themselves and be self-guided, self-learned, and self-directed, that person has so much to offer in a relationship to bring someone else. A healthy relationship looks like two individuals who come together, but each are contained sovereign beings in charge of their own unique process of development, emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually. Each one of us, when we are working on ourselves and developing ourselves, has something beautiful to bring into relationship for the other, to complement, to support and enhance another. But when one person or both people do not have that sovereignty and integration intact, they can become very toxic together, and one can drain the other, or they can both make each other devolve instead of evolve. Much like in the body, when something takes more than the whole system can afford, it destroys the host. And in terms of relationships, it can kill the vitality and healthfulness of the relationship. Some people come from experiences that have been conditioned with attachment disorders and codependency. They may have grown up under the constriction of narcissistic parents that caused them to not be in control of their own developmental or learning process. When a child grows up in a family dynamic like this, a child learns helplessness. It learns to give its power away to the person in the environment that seems to be the strongest, the most dominant, the most threatening. What happens over time is this child learns to externalize its power, to placate others around it in order to stay in good company and favor, so that it can get its needs met through whoever it's given its power to. Let's say, for example, you have a very powerful parent who is a business person, a politician, a lawyer, someone who is in the seat of a level of power that everyone in the family looks up to, but also believes they have more knowledge. They must know more because they are more successful than anyone else is. And so the entire family will give their power away to this one individual who seems to be the best leader of the family. The trouble with this is that it creates a vulnerability and a dependency in those people who have given away and externalized their power. It creates a helplessness within them because they are not able to solve their own problems. They are used to going to the person who is the figurehead and asking, what can I do about this problem? And they may be too afraid to go to that figurehead, and therefore they don't know how to solve problems at all. They don't have an outlet to be able to have someone to go to process that stuff with. So turning inward, becoming inverted, repressing any difficulty becomes their go-to mode. This creates an experience for the person where they feel very helpless. They do not have a critical thinking process, a logical process that is evolving, that's saying, okay, I am in control of my life and my destiny, so I am going to be calculating every single decision I make and everything that I do, and whether or not what I'm doing I can learn from. And so there's no wisdom growth there. There's no ability for them to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and grow from those mistakes. If you see a person in that power dynamic situation, you're going to see them hide their mistakes, be afraid to address their mistakes, and want to bury that under the surface. Therefore, they will lose the ability to grow in wisdom and learn how to cope with failure or perceived failure. They will have an inability to cope with looking at themselves in a way that failure is a learning opportunity, that when you do something wrong or when you don't get it right, that there is a process that you can become better through if you just own that, accept that, and actually learn from it. When you have a healthy person who knows how to take ownership of their destiny and their life and their choices, they recognize that they haven't done everything perfectly, but that life demands them to keep going and keep trying to figure it out. But someone who has been removed from their seat of power and has been overlorded and dominated, they are in a place of fear. It's very scary for them to make decisions on their own because they are not sure if they're capable of making good decisions, because they're outside of a logical, emotional, and mental and critical thinking process that's integrated, that can build upon intelligence over time. They lack the ability to feel instinct. They lack the ability to feel this intuitive knowing because they've got experience with a certain level of processing life and paying attention. That has been externally removed from them. Some families externalize their power. They may not have a matriarch or a patriarch in the family. They may not have somebody very prominent with status in the family, but they might have somebody who is religiously conditioned in the family. They might have that dynamic happening in the family where their power is externalized and their power has been given to the church leadership or to the leadership in the organization that this family values are centered around. And in that way, this can create the same type of learned helplessness, codependent output. And it can make a person feel detached from their level of being proactive to know themselves, to work on themselves, and to actually develop their autonomy and their sovereignty in a way that helps them mature and grow up as a human would over the course of their life. I have seen young adults who were overly controlled by their parents, whether it was through religion or medications or fear programming. What they do is they create a great anxiety inside of the child. The child does not feel in the seat of control of their destiny. They don't feel that they can make choices in their developmental milestone years to experience life the way that their peers are in the time when it really matters. They're being held back from that. They're being overly controlled, stifled, and it can create an incredible anger and rage that will build up inside of the person. And there have been situations where I've seen young adults go psychotic and have complete psychotic breaks because they cannot take the repression anymore. They cannot take being controlled. In a situation like that, sometimes they go psychotic and sometimes they become overly manipulative. They'll learn how to manipulate people. Maybe they learn how to manipulate the mother. They'll find a weakness within the mother and use the guilt that the mother feels about her over controlling her child to get what they want. When you see adults like that, they have a very difficult time maintaining a relationship at all. It becomes very difficult for them to even have good friends because they have attachment disorders. The minute that somebody comes along that will give them any attention, they'll attach immediately to that person and they will want to suck them dry of every resource and all the attention and everything that they want. And so they're difficult to be around because they haven't realized that what happened to them needs to be dealt with. So when you are in a relationship with someone that has been trained this way, you can really very much feel overwhelmed. A healthy relationship needs an even amount of power. They should have their own ability to process, grow, and generate their own enthusiasm for the learning and their own enthusiasm to be able to contribute to themselves and to what's around them in a way that's meaningful to them and helps them grow and develop a process of getting better, getting ahead of the depression that comes when you're removed from not having power and control over your life. And so it's important to understand that if you're a person that has these traits, there is a process you need to undergo to get your power back. In your mind, in your emotions, and in your behaviors, and in your story level narrative, and in how you practice life. We are each supposed to stand and thrive in our own way, but we can really disrupt that process and create a lot of toxicity when we're not taking ownership of our own lives. And you can do that within a monogamous relationship. It doesn't mean that you have to detach from one another and not be bonded. It doesn't mean that you have to not care about one another. It means that you take ownership of your own learning, your own growth, and you contribute to bringing more and more positives, more and more value and benefit in as you grow, not only towards yourself, but also to your partner. It took me many decades to learn the hard way how to stand up for myself and how to create boundaries. Because when you're a very empathic person, people believe, oh, well, you should just always feel sorry for me. And when you're a young empath, you feel their suffering. You go through it with them. It's a painful, difficult process. It's not something you enjoy, but it's something you do out of loyalty and because you do have compassion for them. But what you begin realizing as you get much, much older and thousands of people will take advantage of you in this way is that you cannot survive that. You have to learn how to say, no, that's not mine. I can't take ownership of that. That's yours. This is your work to do. You are the one that needs to take ownership of what happened to you and make it right. If this is happening to you, learn to process, learn to go outside of the experience, outside of that chaos, outside of that trauma, outside of the anger that it's caused in you, and look at it for what it is and say, okay, this person didn't know how to moderate themselves. They were like an energetic, soul-sucking vampire because they have a hunger wound and they will literally suck the blood right out from under me. They will leave me with nothing and move on to the next willing participant. So you wouldn't obviously feed somebody like that. You wouldn't give them everything they want because that's literally going to destroy you. And you've been given this amazing life for a reason. You have a reason here to be here too. You have a process to be fair to. Showing people how to take accountability, whether it's your friend or your offspring or your family members, is very important. When people have this hunger wound, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. A lot of times they are lovely people. You do want the best for them, but they are selfish people and they have to grow beyond this selfish pattern that they're in. Learn to set up boundaries for yourself. You learn to push that person back away from you and say, no, I'm not going to let you do this to me. This is yours to own. This is your experience, and what you do with that is uniquely your problem. It's your problem, it's your solution, it's your journey, and you have to take ownership of that. I'm not going to be the one that makes all the decisions for you and takes all the accountability and all the blame and receives all your anger and your frustration. That's for you to learn to cope with and develop your emotions and your abilities. Not everybody's going to do that. Some people will just move on to the next host, but that's their choice. That is their journey. And if you are a person that finds yourself attached to someone like this, and they're bringing in a lot of toxicity and chaos and torment to your inner emotional and psychological landscape, then that is the wake-up call for you to take inventory of what's going on and actually decide what is mine to own and what is this person's to own. And I'm not going to own their process. They need to own their own process. And if that means that you remove yourself from the situation, so be it. Because this life is a journey, and this person isn't the only person that exists. You just need to be within yourself in this own process, connected to all life. If you'd like to learn more about how to advocate for yourself, how to set up boundaries, and what to do once you realize that this person is toxic for you, take a look at the video I'm linking to above. Remember that you're in charge of your own process, and this life can be an amazing journey.